What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Talking with Beauties, episode 147. We are talking everything has to do with international hockey and everything that has to do with the Russian national team for the 2026 Olympic Games in Italy. So this is an episode I did not expect to make. I said I was going to make a four-part episode or four-part series of episodes for the four nations teams going into the 2026 Olympics. And you guys haven't seen that. We took all those four nation teams, Finland, Sweden, Canada, and the United States, and we looked at the four nation performances. We took those best players from those teams, put them onto the rosters for the Olympics. Then we took the guys that did not play all that well and were kind of lost out there, either cut them completely off this team, kept them, kept a little exclamation point next to kind of like, hey, make sure, watch this guy, make sure he's doing well, and then added some new guys to the roster for all four of those teams. And after I made all the for those episodes, seemed like you guys really liked those episodes, a lot of views on those and a lot of likes. And then the podcast dad, which shout out the podcast dad, said you should make an episode about the Russian national team, even though we don't know what's going to happen with them when it comes to the Olympics and the committee. Are they going to let them play? Are they going to let them at least participate, but wear their flag, not wear their flag? I don't know, a lot of politics into that. I'm not going to get into that. It's a sports podcast. I'm not going to talk about politics on this channel, but a lot of controversy about Russia, but let's just say Russia is accepted into this. They are allowed to participate, whether that's with the flag on the uniform or not. We are going to go into this thinking that Russia is going to be able to participate in the 2026 Olympics, which is going to be held in Milan, Italy. So, because they didn't have a four nations team, obviously, we're going to look at the 2014 Olympic roster, take that roster, look at all of it, see who's still playing, who's not playing, who's good enough to stay on this team if they are still playing, and then add a bunch of players only from the NHL, which is, I think, going to be a little controversial and make this not 100% correct, just because Russia is one of those rare countries that does pull a lot from their home country league, which is the KHL, and they have a lot of talent out of the KHL. Yes, we know a lot of players from the NHL that are Russian, and they could make a full NHL team out of Russian players. But we know that that is probably not going to happen. We're going to see a few KHL guys get into this roster. I'm not familiar with the KHL, obviously. I mean, I live in the States. I've never watched any KHL hockey in my life, and I don't know who's good, who's not. So I'm going to step away from the KHL and make just a NHL roster for the 2026 Olympics. So that is the only criteria, the only thing that's different between my roster and most likely the Russian roster when it does drop, if it is able to if they are able to participate in the 2026 Olympics. So let's look. 2014 Olympics, this team was very good. They were in Group A with the United States, Slovakia, and Slovenia. They finished second in their group behind the United States, one regulation win, one overtime win, and one overtime loss, resulting in 6 points for the tournament. They were a part of that memorable shootout against the United States, where TJ Oshie just stole the show. For the playoffs, they beat Norway 4-0 to make the quarterfinals, and then lost in the quarterfinals to Finland 3-1. Finland would later go on to win bronze in that tournament. So, if we take a deep dive into this roster, goaltenders, there was only two listed, Sergei Bobrovsky and Semyon Varlamov. I mean, everybody knows those two guys. A lot of good games held between both of those players when it came to Russian hockey and when it came to NHL hockey. So very stacked goalies right there with a nice 1-2 punch. Now, moving forward, a lot of these guys, I can't remember how to pronounce everybody's name, so just bear with me. It's going to I'm going to try my best not to butcher everybody's name, but either some of these guys I've never heard of before because they did not play in the NHL, or I just haven't heard their name in so long. I'm just trying my best to remember. So we'll start off with the defense. Nikita Nikitin, Anton Belov, Slava Voronov, Alexia Emelin, Fedor Tayutin, Ilya Nikulin, Andrei Markov, and Evgeny Medvedev. That was the defense core for the Russians. Now for the forwards, Evgeny Malkin, Alexander Radulov, Viktor Tikhonov, Alexei Terashenko, Alexander Semyon, Vladimir Tarasenko, Alexander Popov, Valery Nichushkin, Alexander Ovechkin, Nikolai Kulemin, Artem Anisimov, Pavel Datsyuk, and Ilya Kovalchuk. So yes, a lot of players that we all recognize, we all remember, a couple guys that I definitely do not know at all, and those were definitely non-NHL players that they brought into this team. But when you look at this team, they were the home country. They was held in Sochi that year, and this team came out in the quarterfinals. It is very surprising with how stacked of a roster they have, especially when you have Alex Ovechkin as your captain, Pavel Datsyuk and Ilya Kovalchuk all on this team, who were not, I don't think either of those guys were playing in the NHL at that time. They may have, I know Kovalchuk bounced around between Russia and the United States, but regardless, a very good roster for Russia, and yet they were still not able to get a medal in this one. Now, for the 2026 Olympic roster, same formatting as I did the last 4 episodes, which is 25 total players, 3 goalies, 8 defensemen, 14 forwards. You could dress 20 skaters in one game along with 2 goaltenders. So we'll start off with the goalies. The only person I am bringing back, Sergei Bobrovsky. I think everybody knows why. Bobrovsky is one of the best goalies right now in the league when it comes to Russia, and I don't think even though he's older, he's going to be left off this roster. I mean, he's one of the few guys from that roster that still plays in the league, and I think they're going to bring a veteran guy like Bobrovsky into here, especially because if an injury happens, I would still love to have Bobrovsky as one of my starters, if not even just a backup goalie in this tournament. So Bobrovsky is definitely coming along. And then the 2 not even controversial guys, Andrei Vasilevskiy, Igor Shesterkin. I think those 2 are locks. There is one other guy out there that I will mention later that I think could get the roster spot over Bobrovsky, or maybe even just as an injury. So I could see him as the 4th goalie potentially for this roster. But Igor Shesterkin, one of the best goalies we've seen in a long time, especially another all-star goalie for the Rangers. And Vasilevskiy, he's got 2 cups. He is outstanding. Florida has got 2 really good Russian goalies. It's got Bobrovsky, it's got Vasilevskiy, and Igor Shesterkin added to this roster, I think is a great add for the goaltender situation. So the 3 goalies, very proud of. I think that's outstanding. Good luck for the Russians there. Now for the defensemen, it's a brand new defense core. Nobody that was either on the 2014 roster either plays now or is good enough to outplay any of these players, in my opinion. So we got Dmitry Orlov, Mikhail Sergachev, Ivan Provorov, Dmitry Kulikov, Nikita Zadorov, Vladislav Gavrikov, Pavel Mintyukov, and Alexander Romanov. Now I think all of these guys are pretty close to locks. The only couple that I'm looking at that I'm like, I could probably take out would be Vladislav Gavrikov and Pavel Mintyukov. So those I could see coming out for a KHL player, but I think between the 2, Gavrikov is more of a locked-in Mintyukov. Mintyukov, I know very well. I'm an Anaheim Duck fan. Yes, it's good and bad. I mean, 07 was great, but right now is not great to watch, really. But Mintyukov is one of those young guys that I think Anaheim is hoping to prosper and move forward with in the future, and I think Mintyukov could be this young guy in this defense core, which is a lot older, that they could look towards and just kind of teach and really be a good stepping stone for Mintyukov into the future of him prospering into one of the top players, not just in Anaheim, but hopefully the league. So I think having this young guy in there, especially with how old this core would be of the forward lines, that I think he definitely needs some young guys. I think Mintyukov could be one of those young guys that they look towards for this team. So that's the defense core. Now for the forwards, you got 4 guys from the 2014 roster that I would bring back to the 2026 roster. Alex Ovechkin, I think, is no question a lock. He's going to break Ovi's record. He's going to be one of the best goal scorers in the league. And now he's going to be captain of this team once again. So Ovechkin is a lock on this team. Evgeny Malkin is a lock on this team. Vladimir Tarasenko, I could see actually as a guy that they will not bring back, but I'm still going to give Tarasenko the spot. I think Tarasenko is good enough. He gets back to that roster. And the last one, Valery Nichushkin. I think he's a good enough player. He will be back in this lineup. Now for the new guys. No question, Nikita Kucherov, Arturi Panarin. Those 2 guys are absolute locks. No reason to explain why. Pavel Buchnevich, pretty solid player. I think he's going to be in here. Kirill Kaprizov, young guy. I think he's going to be a top-line guy for this Russian team. He's definitely a lock on this roster. Andrei Svechnikov, very good player as long as he stays healthy. I think he'll be a very good player on this team. Ivan Provorov, I could see as one of those guys that does not stay on this roster. KHL guy could take his spot, but I still think Provorov is very good. Andrei Kuzmenko, another potential KHL guy that could see getting into Kuzmenko's spot, but as of right now, I like Kuzmenko a lot. I think he is a guy that stays in this lineup. Kirill Marchenko, not a lot of guys know this guy's name. Columbus Blue Jacket forward. The only reason I know his name is I took a chance on him in fantasy, and he's actually done very well this season. I'll pop up his numbers on the screen. His numbers look very good this year, and I think Marchenko could be a guy that as long as he stays consistent between now and the Olympic break, he might be on this roster for the Russians. So I really like Marchenko to be in this team. Evgeny Dadonov, I think an older guy, I could see him not making this roster and being a guy that comes out for a KHL guy, but as of right now, Dadonov is in this lineup. And the last one, Vladislav Nemestikov. Older guy, I mean, not real old, but older guy. Been around in the league for a while. Doesn't score a ton, so I could see him getting out from maybe a couple of these guys that I will include coming up right now, or a KHL guy. So that could see that happen with a couple of those guys. But overall, I think this roster looks very good. Now, for the guys that just missed the cut. Now, let's start with the goalies. The jersey behind me in the background, Ilya Sorokin. Yes, I think Sorokin's a pretty solid goaltender, but I think his inconsistency could get him just off the roster. But if they want to go with a young core when it comes to the defense, or younger core, not bring Bobrovsky back, I think Sorokin's that first guy up. He's getting into that roster. So I would not be surprised to see Sorokin in there. But as of right now, I would take those three over Sorokin. For the defense, you got Artyom Zub. I think that is how you pronounce it. He's a guy from Ottawa, defenseman, younger kid. I could see him getting into the roster, being a young guy. And Ilya Lyubushkin, that one's kind of a long shot, but I could see Lyubushkin getting in there. If they want to stay with the older guys, Lyubushkin's been around the league for a long time. I think Lyubushkin could get in there. Now for the forwards, Ivan Barbashev, I think could be a guy that I definitely would put on this roster, but I don't know. I don't know how it's definitely going to be constructed. I think that would be the first guy off, would be Barbashev when it comes to missing the cut. Ilya Mikheyev, good player, but I think Barbashev's just a little bit better, so I think he just misses the cut there. And Matvey Michkov, I doubt I said his first name right, but Michkov, the rookie from Philadelphia. They want to go young core. Michkov is definitely a guy that they want to have in this roster. He's a good player, good skater. I don't care really what Chiclet says. I think he's a very good player. But Michkov could just miss the cut when it comes to just sticking around with the older guys, because it seems like, based off the 2014 roster, they like the older core guys that work together. So if they want to do that, I don't think Michkov makes this roster. But if they want to change up what they're normally doing, when they kind of want to bring in young kids and get the new guys into this tournament style and understand how to play this tournament style, Michkov has to be in this lineup. So I think he could be a lock on that team, but I think as of right now with my roster, he just misses the cut. All right, guys. Well, hey, that will do it for this episode. Thank you guys for listening or watching. We appreciate you. This was part 5 of a 4-part series. If you guys did not check out the first couple parts, the US, Canada, Sweden, and Finland episodes, go check that out now, because those were great episodes. A lot of you guys really like those ones. And tell me, do you think this Russian team has enough to beat any of those 4 teams, or even just get a medal at the very least going into the 2026 Olympics? But hopefully they're able to participate, because honestly, when you have a best-on-best tournament when it comes to hockey, you want to see Russia in there. Unfortunately, whether you stand with or against them in politics, who cares? Russia in a best-on-best tournament is a must. So hopefully we get to see them in Italy represented there, and maybe we get Ovechkin for one last time in the Olympics. So that'd be huge right there. But appreciate you guys listening to this one. Have an awesome rest of your week, and we'll see you guys later.